Hey there, welcome to BingeBot, where we break down all the latest TV shows to help you stay in the loop. Today we're returning to the warring families of Westeros as we recap Season 2 of House of the Dragon, starting with Episode 1, A Son for a Son. Having received a raven with the devastating news that her son, Luke, was killed, a grief-stricken Rhaenyra Targaryen sets out on a tireless quest looking for proof, until she eventually finds the remains of Luke and his dragon, confirming his death and shattering her heart. Upon returning to Dragonstone, the formidable castle from which she rules, Rhaenyra declares to her council that she wants Aemon Targaryen killed for murdering her son.
I will fly to Harrenhal at your command, and set our toehold in the Riverlands.
I want Aemon Targaryen.
King's Landing is also in a state of disarray, as Alicent Hightower finds herself entangled in a secret affair with Sir Criston Cole, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, exactly the same act that she condemned Rhaenyra for when they were younger, causing Alicent a deep sense of shame and guilt. As for Alicent's son, King Aegon II, he's barely a king at all, as he seems more interested in enjoying all the privileges that come with the throne, rather than fulfilling any of his duties, such as overseeing the realm's finances or keeping his promises to his subjects. As a result, Aegon's essentially regarded as worthless by his small council, which includes his brother, Aemond. While Dragonstone's guards inspect an arriving ship, they discover Mysaria, who's fled King's Landing after her spy network was destroyed as it was considered a threat to the crown. Once brought to Dragonstone, Mysaria is imprisoned by Rhaenyra's husband, Daemon, who informs her that if she wants her freedom back, she must help him organize Aemon's assassination, leaving Mysaria with no choice but to agree. Without Rhaenyra's knowledge, Daemon sneaks into King's Landing and meets with a guard of the City Watch nicknamed Blood for his brutal nature, who harbors a deep hatred for the Hightowers. To infiltrate the Red Keep, where the royal family lives, they meet with one of Mysaria's associates, a rat catcher named Cheese, who works in the Red Keep and knows a secret tunnel leading into it. Daemon explains to Blood and Cheese that they need to enter the Red Keep, find Aemon, and kill him as revenge for Rhaenyra's son, paying them half of their fee up front and promising the rest once the job is complete. With their orders understood, Blood and Cheese enter the Red Keep through the secret tunnels and begin their mission. However, as they search from room to room, they eventually realize that Aemon is not in the Red Keep at the moment. And remembering what Daemon said, a son for a son, they decide to head to Aegon's children's room to kill his infant son and heir, Jaehaerys. Upon entering the room, they find Jaehaerys' mother, Helaena, and threaten to kill her and both of her children if she screams, forcing her to quietly carry her baby daughter away while Blood and Cheese cut Jaehaerys' head off. Filled with terror, Helaena rushes to Alicent's room, who's in bed with Criston, a sight that barely startles her as she sits on the floor and delivers the tragic news to Alicent. Episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel. Upon receiving the news of his son's death, Aegon is heartbroken and absolutely infuriated. In his rage, he learns that one of the mercenaries who killed Jaehaerys was caught trying to escape the city carrying a sack with the child's head inside. Fearing torture, Blood immediately confesses that he was hired by Daemon and that he had an accomplice, a rat catcher whose real name he doesn't know. Still, this confession doesn't spare Blood from Aegon's wrath, who kills him with a violent blow to the head. Initially, Jaehaerys' death brings a lot of public sympathy towards Aegon, fueled by the dramatic spectacle orchestrated by his chief advisor and hand of the king, Sir Otto Hightower, a grand procession during which Jaehaerys' body is solemnly paraded through the streets for all to see, while the town crier incessantly proclaims that this is all Rhaenyra is doing, labeling her as a child killer.
A curse! A curse on Rhaenyra, the monstrous!
This public sympathy doesn't last for long though, as Aegon soon shows his cruel nature by ordering all of the rat catchers that work in the Red Keep to be hung around the city, leaving their bodies, including that of Cheese, to rot in front of everyone. Upon hearing of this heinous act, a disgusted Otto angrily confronts Aegon, criticizing him for his poor decision and lack of foresight. After being humiliated by Otto, Aegon realizes that he doesn't need his counsel anymore and decides to dismiss him as the Hand, declaring that Criston will be the new Hand of the King, believing that a firm military approach is what they need at the moment. Once Rhaenyra hears of Jaehaerys' death and how her image is being tarnished as a child killer, she instantly confronts Daemon, knowing that he must have been involved in the murder. While Rhaenyra accuses him, Daemon maintains that he didn't mean for a child to be killed, insisting that his instruction was a son for a son, and was misinterpreted by the mercenaries. No matter how many times Daemon repeats this though, Rhaenyra remains unconvinced, reaching the conclusion that she simply cannot trust Daemon, something that she's known for a long time, and this recent incident all but confirms it. Frustrated by this, Daemon mounts his dragon, Caraxes, and departs Dragonstone, heading to Harrenhal, the largest castle in the realm. Supposedly, Daemon is doing this to claim the castle in Rhaenyra's name and rally the neighboring houses to swear allegiance to her. However, after their heated argument and knowing that Daemon only cares about himself, Rhaenyra suspects that he might have other motives. Episode 3. The Burning Mill. Now that he's hand of the king, Criston urges that their next step should be to make the war official by going into battle, a suggestion that Aegon favors greatly as his blood is still boiling from the death of his son. Aware of the danger of losing the king in battle, Aegon's small council insists that he should remain safely within King's Landing, leaving the fighting to his soldiers, a decision that frustrates Aegon, who feels infantilized by everyone around him, as though they see him more as a child than a king. Even though Daemon is gone, Rhaenyra decides to uphold his promise to Mysaria and sets her free, allowing her to go anywhere that she wants. But recognizing that this is the first time that anyone has ever treated her with dignity, a grateful Mysaria requests that Rhaenyra give her a place on her council, promising her loyalty to her. Knowing that Mysaria possesses a unique knowledge of the inner workings of King's Landing, Rhaenyra accepts her as her advisor. Still insisting that a war should be averted, Rhaenyra asks if Mysaria can arrange for her to secretly meet Alicent, believing that she too would like to avoid an all-out war. Following Mysaria's instructions, Rhaenyra manages to sneak into King's Landing disguised as a septa and heads to the Great Sept of Baelor, a place of worship for the Faith of the Seven that Alicent often visits without her guards. To avoid causing a scene, Rhaenyra quietly sits beside Alicent and urges her not to scream, assuring her that she means no harm and only seeks a conversation to reach a peaceful resolution. During their discussion, Rhaenyra blames Alicent for starting this conflict by lying and claiming that her father, Viserys, changed his mind to make her queen at the last moment before his death. Once Alicent swears that she's not lying, Rhaenyra decides to keep an open mind and asks for Viserys' exact words. While admitting that Viserys was tired and sometimes hard to understand, Alicent stresses she's certain that he mentioned Aegon's name, believing he referred to him as the prince that was promised to unite the realm. The moment that Rhaenyra hears the words "the prince that was promised," she instantly understands where the confusion lies, realizing that her father was speaking of the Song of Ice and Fire, a prophetic story told 2 centuries ago by Aegon the Conqueror, the founder of the Targaryen dynasty in Westeros, which is completely unrelated to Alicent's son, Aegon II.
He spoke to you of the Song of Ice and Fire. It's a story he once told. About Aegon the Conqueror.
As soon as Rhaenyra explains this, Alicent is stunned and barely unable to speak, recognizing that she's made a major mistake. But instead of acknowledging her error, Alicent tells Rhaenyra that it's too late now and war is almost unavoidable, before quickly leaving, embarrassed by her mistake and sorrowful for all the damage that she's unintentionally caused. In contrast, Rhaenyra now has a confident look on her face, more certain than ever that she's truly supposed to be the queen. Episode 4. The Red Dragon and the Gold. Upon discovering that Criston is marching towards Rook's Rest, one of Rhaenyra's most vital castles, her loyal older cousin Rhaenys volunteers to join the battle with her dragon, Meleys. Once Criston's siege begins, Rhaenys promptly arrives on the dragon, raining down a blaze of dragon fire, incinerating many of Criston's soldiers. Unfortunately, Criston was prepared for such an event and reveals his secret weapon, Aemond and his enormous dragon Vhagar, who are hiding nearby in the woods. As Aemond prepares to take flight, he's surprised by the arrival of Aegon, who's desperate to prove that he too is a force to be reckoned with. Upon spotting Rhaenys, Aegon commands his dragon, Sunfire, to unleash flames at her, but in retaliation, Meleys inflicts deep scratches on Sunfire and takes large bites out of his body. Realizing he's losing the fight against Rhaenys, Aegon is relieved to see Aemond finally arrive, believing that his brother has come to rescue him. Instead, in a blatant act of betrayal, Aemond commands Vhagar to attack Aegon, engulfing him and Sunfire in flames and sending them crashing into the forest below.
Your Grace!
With Aegon out of the picture, Aemond turns his sights on Rhaenys, igniting a fierce clash between Vhagar and Meleys. Despite the size difference, Meleys initially dominates, even forcing Vhagar to the ground momentarily. But tragically, Vhagar proves too powerful to be kept down and suddenly emerges from beneath Meleys, delivering a fatal bite to her neck, scorching through her scaly flesh and sending both her and Rhaenys plummeting to their deaths in an explosion of dragonfire. Shortly after, Criston, having been knocked unconscious during the chaos, awakens to find that his forces have won the battle and captured the castle, albeit with heavy losses, mainly due to the unforgiving dragons. Having seen Sunfire fall from the sky and plummet to his death, Criston ventures into the forest in search of his king. Upon arrival, he finds Aemond with his sword drawn, approaching Aegon's body, but once Aemond notices Criston, he nonchalantly sheaths his sword and points towards Aegon, who's alive but gravely injured, leaving Criston with a sense of dread, as though the true battle might have been lost. Episode 5. Regent. Despite the victory, the atmosphere in King's Landing is heavy with despair as Aegon's brought back to his chambers in a carried bed, unconscious and severely burned. As Alicent watches on in distress, Grand Maester Orwyle carefully removes Aegon's armor and begins treating his visible injuries. But despite his best efforts, Orwyle admits that there could be significant internal damage, which would make it nearly impossible for Aegon to fully recover. Determined to find out what happened to Aegon, Alicent confronts Criston. Once open and loyal to Alicent, Criston now barely speaks, and when he does, he's just telling lies, claiming that Aegon fought valiantly in battle, something that Alicent knows can't possibly be true. Sensing that Criston's hiding something, she presses him about Aemond's role in the battle, which startles Criston into silence, clearly hiding his suspicions that Aemond is responsible for Aegon's injuries, fearing that he'd meet the same fate if he reveals the truth. With Aegon incapacitated, his council begins deliberating on who should rule in his place. Alicent, having effectively ruled while Viserys was on his deathbed, proposes herself as the logical choice. Most members of the council oppose this idea though, believing that a more fearsome leader is needed in this time of war, which is why they choose Aemond as the interim ruler, granting him the title of Prince Regent. Without hesitation, Aemond accepts his position, confirming that this was his plan all along. Noticing this, Alicent grows even more suspicious, recognizing the danger of Aemond ruling the realm, knowing that he's purely driven by an insatiable desire for revenge. Episode 6. Smallfolk. Luckily, Alicent finds some solace in the fact that Aegon finally wakes up, although he's in constant pain, unable to move, and looks unrecognizable due to all of his burns. While this brings some relief to Alicent, it doesn't sit well with Aemond, who immediately heads to Aegon's room. Once Aegon sees Aemond, he's understandably terrified and uses all of his energy to assure Aemond that he won't tell anyone that this is his doing, fearing that Aemond might inflict even more harm on him. Meanwhile, the common citizens of King's Landing, also known as the Smallfolk, are exasperated as food has become scarce due to the Valyrian blockade of the Gullet and resources being diverted to the war effort and feeding Vhagar. Aware of this, Mysaria devises a brilliant plan to make Rhaenyra the champion of the people, sending numerous boats to King's Landing with Rhaenyra's flag on them, each boat filled with a wide variety of food. As this news spreads, the streets quickly fill with people running to the boats to bring food to their families, but soon after, riots start to break out in the streets and at the Sept of Baelor, with crowds chanting Rhaenyra's name while throwing insults and fish at Helaena and Alicent, making it clear that the public now supports Rhaenyra as their one true queen. Recognizing his wisdom and seeking to strengthen her alliance with him, Rhaenyra appoints Corlys as her hand, and knowing that this is what his deceased wife Rhaenys would have wanted, Corlys graciously accepts. To fully dedicate himself to his new role, Corlys entrusts one of his fleet's crew members, Alan of Hull, to become first mate and command the fleet in his absence. Both Alan and his brother, Adam, realize that Corlys' decision is a way of seeking their forgiveness, as Corlys is in fact their father who abandoned them as children, as they were the result of an illicit affair and thus bastards. Despite Alan's new prestigious role as first mate, he still resents Corlys for abandoning him and Adam when they were little, forcing them to grow up as impoverished lowborns while Corlys and his legitimate children enjoyed a life of wealth. Meanwhile, Adam feels that Alan's actually fortunate, as he himself has not been acknowledged by Corlys at all. It seems like Adam won't need Corlys' help to achieve greatness though, as one day while walking along the beach, he suddenly finds himself pursued by the unclaimed dragon Seasmoke, who inexplicably ignores everybody else and targets Adam specifically. Terrified, Adam attempts to escape by running long distances through the forest, but Seasmoke continues to relentlessly chase him and eventually corners him against a stone. Confronted by the dragon, Adam braces himself for the end, but surprisingly, Seasmoke doesn't hurt him. Instead, he approaches him slowly, having chosen Adam as his rider. Upon learning that Seasmoke was seen with a rider, Rhaenyra promptly mounts her dragon, Syrax, to meet with this unknown but important man. Episode 7. The Red Sowing. As soon as Rhaenyra meets Adam, he immediately bends the knee, pledging his loyalty to her, and astonished that Seasmoke allowed a non-Targaryen to ride him, Rhaenyra asks Adam about his family background and bloodline. While he wants to be honest, Adam explains that his mother was a shipbuilder, but decides to keep his father's identity a secret, claiming that he was no man of consequence. Still curious, Rhaenyra asks if Adam's ancestors were Targaryens, to which he responds that people like him, lowborns, don't keep track of their lineage, so he honestly doesn't know the answer to her question. And sensing the sincerity in Adam's voice, Rhaenyra accepts him and invites him to Dragonstone. Given that she has 2 more unclaimed dragons, Vermithor and Silverwing, Rhaenyra realizes that there might be potential riders for them out there, she just needs to find them. Once again, Mysaria proves invaluable, suggesting that if Rhaenyra wants to find more dragon riders, she should look for illegitimate Targaryen offspring, as the Targaryens are known for spending a lot of time in pleasure houses, fathering children but never claiming them. Knowing that having more dragon riders would undoubtedly turn the tide of war in her favor, Rhaenyra agrees to this unconventional plan, and over the next few days, Mysaria uses her spies in King's Landing to spread the word that Rhaenyra is seeking illegitimate Targaryens, known as Dragonseed, who will essentially audition before the dragons to see if they accept them as riders. When the volunteers arrive at Dragonstone, Rhaenyra welcomes them before stressing the danger that they're putting themselves in, emphasizing that most, if not all, will likely be burned by the dragons. However, if a dragon accepts any of them, that person's life will be forever changed, as they will have the rare privilege of becoming a dragon rider. Having made this clear, Rhaenyra leads the volunteers to the dragon lair known as Dragonmont, summons Vermithor, the second largest known dragon in Westeros, and wishes them all good luck. As soon as the first person approaches Vermithor, the dragon becomes enraged, spewing flames and devouring everybody in its path. Horrified by the dragon's onslaught, the volunteers attempt to flee, but Vermithor's wrath proves devastating. With nearly everybody dead, Vermithor hunts down the remaining few, and as he's about to kill a terrified woman, a man named Hugh the Hammer bravely draws the dragon's attention, allowing the woman to escape.
Come on!
Impressed by Hugh's courage, Vermithor decides not to kill him, and instead allows him to touch him, all while Rhaenyra watches, pleased to have finally found a rider for Vermithor. Simultaneously, Ulf the White, one of the few survivors of Vermithor's rampage, finds himself deeper in the dragon lair and is approached by Silverwing, who quickly takes a liking to Ulf, playfully knocking him down a few times, conveying that Ulf too has been chosen as a dragon rider. Moments later, Ulf, eager to take Silverwing to the skies, soars from Dragonstone and over King's Landing, showing off his newly claimed dragon. When Aemond notices this, he immediately mounts Vhagar and flies towards Dragonstone. As Aemond approaches the island, he sees that Rhaenyra is now surrounded by several dragons, which pose a real threat to Vhagar, causing him to turn back. With a knowing smile, Rhaenyra watches Aemond flee, recognizing that she finally has the upper hand. Episode 8: The Queen Who Ever Was. Now that her dragons are very likely to overpower her enemies, Rhaenyra recognizes that she still needs to determine if Daemon remains loyal to her or has decided to betray her. To uncover this truth, Rhaenyra flies to Harrenhal, where she finds that Daemon has indeed raised a massive army. Initially, she is suspicious, but to her surprise, Daemon reveals that during his time in Harrenhal, he saw a vision similar to Aegon the Conqueror's dream of the Song of Ice and Fire, which gave him insights that profoundly changed him, as he's realized that winter is coming, and with it will come the White Walkers, bringing death to all. And much like Viserys did, Daemon now believes that only Rhaenyra stands a chance of uniting the realm against this dire enemy, emphasizing this by swearing loyalty to Rhaenyra once and for all and kneeling before her, followed by the amassed army.
I am meant to serve you, and all of these with me, until death, or the end of our story.
Despite now having an exceptionally powerful army and dragons, Rhaenyra still feels conflicted about her upcoming attack on King's Landing, knowing that she'd inevitably kill thousands of innocent civilians. In this moment of uncertainty, Rhaenyra receives a solution for her problem in the form of Alicent, who secretly traveled to Dragonstone to speak with Rhaenyra. Having done some self-reflection, Alicent finally admits that she misunderstood Viserys' final words and acknowledges her responsibility for the disastrous events that followed. Although Rhaenyra appreciates Alicent's admissions, she still doesn't understand why she decided to come to Dragonstone to tell her all of this. In response, Alicent explains that Aemond will soon leave King's Landing to join Criston in another battle, leaving Helaena and herself to rule in his absence. Given this, if Rhaenyra arrives in King's Landing within a few days, Alicent promises to order all of the guards to drop their weapons and surrender immediately, allowing Rhaenyra to take the Iron Throne without any resistance, trusting that once Rhaenyra is the ruler, she'll promptly end the war. Alicent even stresses that she'll convince Aegon to bend the knee to Rhaenyra, which won't be difficult given that his dragon is dead and his body is ruined beyond repair. While Rhaenyra likes this plan, she insists that it's not enough. To become the one true ruler of the realm, there must be a definitive end to her opposition, and to achieve this, she must execute Aegon for all to see. While this breaks Alicent's heart, she recognizes that it is indeed the only way for Rhaenyra to be acknowledged by the entire realm as the one true ruler, giving her no choice but to agree, deciding to sacrifice her son for the greater good of the realm.
Make your sacrifice. A son for a son.
Now that they've reached an agreement, Alicent departs Dragonstone, expecting Rhaenyra's arrival in King's Landing soon so their plan can take effect. It appears that this plan might encounter an obstacle though, as neither Rhaenyra nor Alicent is aware that Aegon has found an unexpected ally in Lord Larys Strong, who suffered from disabilities his entire life, like his clubfoot, and can empathize with Aegon's plight. While Larys' true motives for helping Aegon remain unclear, his influence is real, as he's warned Aegon that he's no longer safe in King's Landing, with Aemond or Rhaenyra likely to kill him. To evade this danger, Larys has arranged for himself and Aegon to secretly escape King's Landing, and they're currently on their way to Essos, a faraway continent not sworn to the Iron Throne, where they'll go into hiding. At the same time, unaware of any of these recent developments, all of the prominent houses from across the realm have assembled their armies and are making their way to join the upcoming battle at King's Landing. While some houses have sworn allegiance to Rhaenyra and some to Aegon, they all anticipate a colossal battle, whereas Alicent and Rhaenyra anticipate no battle at all, leaving the future uncertain between a peaceful transition of power or widespread bloodshed and chaos. And that wraps up House of the Dragon Season 2. Thanks for watching our recap and for sticking around to the end. If you liked the video, consider dropping a like or sharing it with a friend, and if you want to see more, subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll be back before long with another recap, but for now, BingeBot is logging off.